From Santa Rosa, California, this is 19 Stories. I'm Cheryl Holling.
Disinformation is spreading.
There will be a surprise outbreak.
We only have so many
the issue of pandemic.
No social distancing at all.
They said that they would express their concerns about the mask supply.
Where's the mask? Where's the glove?
One expert says a second
get away from all of these
We all
people.
need some good news.
A message for all the healthcare workers out there.
Thank you.
If you're looking for hope tonight, raise your hand. If you feel alone and don't understand, if you're fighting the fight of your life, then stand.
For those of you who may be joining me for the first time, 19 Stories is about women and men from all walks of life doing the extraordinary in their everyday. Their will to live, press on, and press through their personal fears and move into a future filled with hope. So hello and welcome to a brief recap of the She Podcast Live conference that I attended last week in Scottsdale, Arizona. For those of you who do not podcast, you may be wondering, why would I do a recap on an industry event that may not apply to your lives or business? Well, for one, it was the first time in almost 2 years that I had engaged with really anyone outside of my very small circle, and certainly on the scale that I did last week. Given the pandemic, you may have been living in a similar existence, and with more people getting vaxed and life beginning to open up once again, God willing, for real this time, you may be looking to enlarge your circle and engage with more people as well. I have to say that getting on a plane, being in close quarters, and that close to a couple of hundred people just to get to my destination raised some fear and anxiety for me, and I actually had a bit of a panic attack. So much so that when my cousin picked me up at the airport in Phoenix, I all but walked right past him directly into his car without barely saying hello. And thankfully he understood and saw that I was operating out of my normal comfort zone than what I was used to for the past 20 months. And I got to the conference a couple of days early, as I had the pleasure of working with She Podcasts for the better part of the past 5 months in putting together their swag bags for the event, and I was to be working with a team of people, some known and others that became new friends, to coordinate the bags, check-in, and registration materials and get settled before the conference began. I had never been to Scottsdale, and to say that the desert during the fall is magical is an understatement. To add to the majesty, the property where the conference was held was absolutely gorgeous, with pools, walking trails close to Camelback Mountain, and my favorite coffee shop that no longer exists here in Sonoma County, allowing me to get out and walk my almost 4 miles each morning and take in the beauty of the desert at sunrise. It was just spectacular. Another apprehension about gathering with so many others after only getting to know a fraction of the 400-plus women via Zoom is that it is always different meeting people in person than getting to know them online. And also, I'll speak for myself, how do you behave after really not having live in-person conversations for so long? Will we be supportive of one another, allow that not all of us will be comfortable being fully present right out of the gate? Well, the organizers of She Podcast Live handled that with great aplomb by not only having badges that designated if you were an extrovert, introvert, etc., but giving out color-coded lanyards that also let others know if you were comfortable with close physical contact such as hugs, or did you need your space, or perhaps something in between. Systems that prior to the pandemic would seem silly, but ones that made perfect sense as we came together after being apart for so long. The beauty of the women I worked with on the event was that we were all simpatico in our personalities, humor, and our mutual desire to serve and to also get the most out of the time we were there. Given I am still relatively new to podcasting, I went with an open heart and mind to learn all that I could in making my podcast better, how to expand my audience, and to learn what I could about monetizing it so that I can continue producing content on a weekly basis. Podcasting, although very rewarding, can be really hard, and I wanted to meet with like-minded women who've been doing it a lot longer than I have and have learned to be really successful and some very profitable from it. Although I launched my podcast as a passion project, there are hard costs associated with podcasts, and rather than come out of pocket for those expenses, I'd like to be able to cover them. I share that with you so that if you do have an idea or dream of producing your own podcast, that you're aware of some of what's involved in doing so. Speaking of which, After almost 4 days of back-to-back panels, speakers, and podcasts representing every genre, age, and racial diversity, networking at the parties, or out on a walk, or sitting by an intimate fire in the courtyard, my major takeaways from this fantastic conference are that, 1, everyone has a unique voice and story, that if you have the desire, drive, and passion to tell it, then podcasting is a perfect medium to do so. 2, you need partnerships, other people, in this case women, to walk this journey with you, help you in your challenges, hold you accountable, and to celebrate your victories. Your brand, if you will, is your own unique personality and voice, and thus your podcast or business, fill in the blank, is not going to be the same as someone else. So for goodness sakes, learn from others, but stop comparing your progress or success to someone else's. 4, find what is and what is not working for you. Change what you can, and then change your mindset about what you can't. 5, just because you can do it all doesn't mean you should. And this is a big one for me. As for now, I am a one-person show when it comes to both producing my podcast and pursuing my voiceover work. Thus, one of the reasons that I would like my podcast to be self-sustaining so that I may actually begin farming out some of the work. 6, and I would say finally, but there's always so much more, isn't there? But I will say finally, with the following pearl of wisdom courtesy of the Satellite Sisters who spoke at the conference: what women do, think, and say should not be diminished by the news of the day. And what I interpreted that to mean is meaning we are more than the news bites and what is deemed important on the local news or in societal fashion. Our voice matters. And I believe that by being willing to be vulnerable, share our stories, our fears, our bravery, and the tools to overcome those fears, we can live into the hope of a healthier future. One of the mixed blessings of attending a conference in a beautifully relaxing and inspiring environment with equally empowering and beautiful people is coming down the other side of the contact high, so to speak. My heart and mind are full and grateful, and yet sad to not be around the energy and acceptance found in a brief moment of time, camaraderie, and connection. It is my desire that by continuing to share people's stories on 19 Stories from Fear to Hope, is that I'm able to present a common thread of hope that will help you for a moment of time as well. I want to share that the very next day upon returning from my immersion into the world of podcasting, that I received notification that my little podcast that could was nominated for a SOVAS Award. SOVAS, otherwise known as the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, for Best Podcast. To say that I'm honored would be an understatement, and I'm so very grateful to all of my guests who have trusted me enough to share their stories. Until the next episode of 19 Stories from Fear to Hope, stay healthy and hopeful.
Dangerous. Together with our differences, together we are bolder, braver, stronger.